you did get me on, didn't you? Everybody's awake now, aren't they? Technology is not my highlight today anyways, okay? So we'll start over. Good morning. How is everyone? And had another good week, I hope, and trust that each person had a good week and another beautiful Sunday morning. And I am 53 years old last day of this month. And of course, I'm farm kids, you know, so I mean, this is implanted in my mind. A lot of you farm and at least like the outdoors. But how many of you can remember it ever been any greener and more beautiful than it is today in September the 1st? Anybody can remember any year in their life? I can't. My grass, we mow it every 3 days. And we wore 2 good lawnmowers out this summer trying to keep up, but it's okay because, like I tell my neighbors, when my grass is growing, outside of that fence, them cows are still grazing, and they're still getting to eat too. So I don't complain about the rain, but it's as beautiful as I can ever remember it been September 1st in my lifetime. With that said, we'll open it up to everyone here, and we'll get an update on our sick. And I'll let you go first. The last thing I had on Betty Congleton was that she had been moved back to the hospital in Moorhead, right? Is she still there this morning? Okay. Has anybody talked to her or saw her yesterday? Okay. Worries about what? Oh, communion. Yeah. Okay. Well, maybe Brandon would be kind enough to take it to her. Huh? Yeah. I can do that. So maybe I'll do that first today. You remind me, okay? All right. Who else? Miss Betty Conley's still taking treatments. The last word I heard on that, has anybody seen her, visited with her? Or? She what? A treatment on Thursday. Okay. All right. She's home. And I'm sure that she's probably sick again. Weak. Yeah. Okay. All right. Who else? Who are you pointing to? Oh. I didn't take my eyes far to the right. I'm sorry. Okay. 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 So Miss Margie Hall, she is home, but she's going back every day for antibiotic treatment. And Miss Ruby, she is down. You said right? Okay. And but she's going for physical therapy. Yes, ma'am. Jean Wheels. Okay. Okay. Having surgery on her back Wednesday, and it'll be here in Mount Sterling? In Lexington. Okay. All right. Anybody else? Who else? Yeah, Danny's going in for a hip replacement on Tuesday, right? Yeah. Okay. All right. All right. So let's keep Danny in our prayers. Anybody else? And who was this again? Okay. A co-worker, you said? Okay. So one of his co-workers in a bad accident yesterday. He was T-boned, I guess. Bad accident. Yes, sir. Okay, so Sandy Edmonds, she's going to meet with surgeon on September 17th. Is that what you said, Clyde? Okay. Okay. Okay, from a recent biopsy that she had. I'll meet with the surgeon to see what the next step is. Okay. All right, let's keep Sandy on prayer. Anybody else? Oh, wow. Okay. That would be Carla Baker, Carla Wilby's, a real good friend from college. Her father found out that that he had bone cancer. Hospice has been called in already, so it must be really, pretty advanced. And so let's remember Carla's friend, father. Anybody else? All right, Jerry, would you mind leading us in an opening prayer, please?
Heavenly Father, we thank you that we can come out this morning to worship you, Father. We pray that you be with Alan this morning as he directs our plan. Pray that we be attentive students. And Father, we ask that you be with each and every one that was mentioned here this morning. We know that you know their individual needs. And Father, we pray that you give them the help that they need. And Father, always we pray that in all things thy will be done. And we ask for your continued guidance and direction in life. Thank you for the many, many blessings. And Father, if we've erred in any way, we ask for your forgiveness. And this we ask in thy Son's most precious and holy name. Amen.
Amen. Thank you, Jerry. All right. It's allergy season again, and you'll hear me. So I apologize for that up front, and don't have it near as bad as my wife does. She just almost gets down with it this time of year with ragweed. But anyways, I do suffer the allergy part too. About a year ago, we started on this, and it was the American Jesus is what was put in the bulletin about a year ago, if you remember that, and everybody wanted to know what the American Jesus was. Well, we just miscommunicated, me and Mr. Tom did, and actually it was the miracles of Jesus, okay? So as you know, I mean, there's no way I can get through 37 lessons, in a 3-month period, so, and I loved them. I absolutely love studying them. It's such a treat, and so I want to continue on with that study during this time, and so that's what we're going to study about again today. So if you was wondering if we was going to do the American Jesus, so we're not. So, but we are going to talk about the miracles. And we need to refresh ourselves probably just a little bit. If you're like me, a year later, you slept a lot of nights. And so we're going to talk about, what is a miracle? Tell me what a miracle is. We hear that all the time. Oh, it's a miracle. He or she lived, or they're healed, right? What is a miracle? Supernatural occurrence, okay? Anybody else? What was it? Can't be explained. Yeah, that's part of it too. What else? What else is, when we say it's a miracle?
Well, Nicodemus' definition, he said no man could do these miracles unless God was with him.
Unless God was with him. Right. So let's read exactly what the dictionary says that a miracle is, okay? An event with the forces of nature, including the natural powers of man, cannot of themselves produce, and which must therefore be referred to as a supernatural agency. So that pretty much describes what a miracle is, right? We can talk about miracles and the philosophy, and we even have some brethren in the church that believes at this time that miracles, that they were just symbols, that they really never did happen, So we won't take that approach today. We'll take this approach just like we always have. That's what the Bible says, and that's why we're going to talk about it today, that our miracles happen just as they're so spoken in the Bible. But there's a lot of discussion about miracles. You can study and read about miracles forever. It's an endless discussion. But for us today, we will take the miracles, as our study that are very literal and that they did happen. There is different things in the Bible that is talked about. 3 words refer to miracles. Does anybody know what they are? A sign, a wonder, one more. Power. Power. So a wonder is something extraordinary, right? When we say that it's a wonder, right? So it's extraordinary. To say that a sign is a miracle that figuratively represents something else. And the word power, we all know what power is. It's something that's mighty. And those 3 words are referenced in the Bible too, okay? There's 37 miracles in the New Testament that Jesus performed, okay? Now, we can get into this discussion, a lot of different discussions. He was raised from the dead. Jesus was. That's a miracle, right? But that's not fall in our realm here of our discussion, okay? That's where we are with that. The 37 that Jesus performed that happened. Is that all the miracles that Jesus done was 37? Did he do 39, 40? Maybe there's 2 or 3 they didn't talk about? He did how many? Lots. What number is that? Yeah, she's right. Lots is a good word because in John 21:25 it says Jesus did many other things as well. If every one of them were written down, he said, I suppose that even the whole world would not have room for the books that would be written. I really like that verse. I mean, when you think about the ones that's recorded, the 37 that Jesus done, and you're thinking, did he really walk by a man laying on the side of the road and didn't perform that miracle and help him get up? That tells me he did. Does it tell you that's what he did too? That's what that verse tells me. I mean, that the whole world couldn't, the books that would be written about it. I mean, I'm not sure how literal that is, but all he was saying is he done, lots. There's our word, lots of miracles, right? And so the 37 that is written, and what 4 books are they written in the New Testament? The Gospels. What are the Gospels? Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John. That's where they're recorded at. Okay. So we need to understand that we're only talking about 37 here, but he did so many that that supposedly that couldn't be enough books written, that would have covered the whole world. And I like that. Does everybody like that? I do. Until I really got studying about this, maybe I'd forgotten that scripture was even there. But to think that our Jesus would walk behind anybody that needed to be healed, to be helped, and to say that he did all these other miracles is something that gives me comfort and that I like. All right, what kind of miracles did Jesus perform? What kind? Healing is one. Power over nature. That's right, over the winds and the waves. What else? Water to wine, over nature. Yep, that's right. What else? Right, absolutely. He raised the dead. One more? He what? Sickness, that's right. Yeah. And he also performed exorcisms, if you will. What? Oh. Yeah, cast out demons or perform exorcisms. That's what that is. So, and Jesus done this for a great show, right? And he always had great fanfare, drew big crowds. Took 3 days to perform all these miracles, right? When he raised Lazarus from the dead, is that what he done? He did. He did 0 of that, didn't he? The big show was never an event for Jesus in none of his miracles, was it? And sometimes he did it and didn't even see the person, right? That he was healing. raising from the dead. So why did he do it that way, you think? I mean, if for instance, if Duke and Kentucky is going to play basketball tonight, do they close the doors and let 10 people in to see it? Didn't want to praise himself? What else you think? Why do you think he did it this way? I mean, my way of thinking is, my personality is, if I'm going to raise somebody from the dead, I'm going to tell everybody about it for a week, and then I'm going to get in front of the courthouse steps, and I'm going to let a zillion people see it. Because I think that would have added to the ministry. That's my way of thinking. So why do you think Jesus done it this way? This is an opinion question. I mean, I can't tell you for sure why. Why that it was. Okay.
And also, the number of people that reached through this would have been huge, and it showed the power. It let them see the power of God, and it was the volume of God reached not only those who saw it, but like you said, tells the story.
Yeah. Yeah.
You didn't want the big number following around. All these people, if they tried to go to every one of them, like he wouldn't, it would be like you said, he'd have one a month or something like that. He didn't want the big crowd to follow him. He couldn't handle it.
He had thousands of followers one,
Right.
but he didn't do what you said, which is set up the show. He just naturally responded to the need. When people saw he could heal people and he was willing to, they brought. I mean, there's several places in the gospel he said that people brought their sick to him and that he was a healer.
Right.
And thousands would follow him from time to time.
Right.
But it wasn't like he put on a big production. He just responded with compassion and love of God.
Oh, there's a good word. What'd you say? He responded with what? Compassion. Remember that word, okay?
And he was showing that he was the Messiah because that was fulfilling scripture too, that he would do all these miracles and bring in the kingdom of God. But he was responding with compassion that he was from God.
Right, right. So our point is that he never done none of this for a show. Yes, sir.
All through the Bible, God the Father said, I am the great I am. And so many people did not believe in Jesus. He did this to show his authority, to say that I am the great I am.
Right, right. The great I am. Absolutely, you're right. But, like I say, when I think of this, and I'm human, right? You know, and I would have wanted all these people to see it. Just to think that I could have drawn more people in. But that wasn't Jesus' purpose in this, right? You know, there was two reasons that he done this. Every miracle they performed. It was done without fanfare. It was done without a show. It was not billed as a magic show, right? None of those things were. But there was two reasons that he done this. You know, it was your word, compassion. He showed his love toward mankind, right? And he also showed that he was all powerful and he had that divinity. So there's really two reasons there, okay? All right. Look at my notes here. Yep.
I'm only thinking of along the water line that he didn't do in accordance with somebody else's faith, right? So almost every one of the reports, his comment is, your faith has done this. Your faith has resulted in this. So the recorded miracles that we have to review and study are really examples of faith in him and in Father through him, as opposed to examples of his ultimate power. That's kind of what I see.
Well, even his own mother had faith in that miracle, though, that he would be able to perform and deliver, though, right? So, I mean, to me, that one's still faith-based. You know, even though, you know, we're talking about turning the water into wine, it didn't seem like he was real excited in the beginning to do this, right? You know, but he did it. His mother had faith that he would be able to deliver And he did. Yeah. Okay. Anything else? All right. The first miracle the last miracle that we talked about, Jesus had. He was on a great roll. He had healed the centurion's servant, and he had healed a withered hand in the synagogue. Do you remember that? And we had this great debate over that. The Jewish leaders he had worked on Sunday, and then they rolled into town, and then he raised the woman's a lady's son from death. And that was the last one that we got accomplished in here, So the Bible says that there was a big crowd following Jesus during this time, And I think it would be an exciting time at that particular moment in time to have been a Christian, to have been following Jesus as he was doing this, And I think it'd be a great time in history. But let me get to my notes here. So now we're on to our next miracle here, and we're going to talk about it. And the scripture I've chosen is going to be in Mark chapter 5, verses 1 through 20. This is a very vivid, kind of eerie scene that we're in. In Mark, he talks about one man. Matthew talks about two. So keep in mind that there's a little variation in the story here between the recordings between Mark and Matthew. I just want to point that out. It's basically the same story, but we're going to use Mark here. And and the only reason that our great scholar says that Mark only talks about one is because he was the most dominant one of the two. I don't know that. But so we're going to talk about one man here, and the miracle is just as complete talking about one man as it would be two here, okay? So let's read in Mark chapter 5, starting at verse 1. And it says, "They came to the other side of the sea into the country of the Gerasenes. When he got out of the boat, immediately a man from the tombs with an unclean spirit met him. And he had his dwelling among the tombs. And no one was able to bind him anymore, even with a chain, because he had often been bound with shackles and chains, and the chains had been torn apart by him, and the shackles broken in pieces. And no one was strong enough to subdue him." Okay, let's stop right there. So immediately, when you study this, the geography setting here was that there was a lot of caves on the other side here, what we're talking about, and people who were deranged. No doubt this guy was mentally deranged, right? And but it's an ugly scene in it. This guy is, he's been shunned from town, run from town, right? Nobody can do nothing with him. So he's living out here by himself, or with this other man actually, and maybe more men. We're not sure, but this is the way it's recorded. Okay. All right, let's get back to our story, okay? In verse 5, it says, "Constantly, night and day, he was screaming among the tombs and in the mountains and gashing himself with stones. Seeing Jesus from a distance, he ran up and bowed down before him. And shouting with a loud voice, he said, 'What business do we have with each other, Jesus, Son of the Most High God?' He says, 'I implore you by God, do not torment me.' For he had been saying to him, 'Come out of the man, you unclean spirit.' And he was asking him, 'What is your name?' And he said to him, 'My name is Legion, for we are so many.' And he began to implore him earnestly not to send them out of the country. Now there was a large herd of swine feeding nearby on the mountain. The demons implored him, saying, 'Send us into the swine so that we may enter them.' Jesus gave them permission, and coming out, the unclean spirits entered the swine, and the herd rushed down the steep bank into the sea, about 2,000 of them, and they were drowned in the sea." Okay, let's stop there just a little bit, okay? We think this happened at night, or in the evening, And verse 35 in chapter 5 leads us to believe that this was toward the evening. So it'd been just a little more scary, right? You know, to see this guy screaming and hollering. But let's go back to what it says here. It says, in verse 3, it says, and he had his dwelling among the tombs. People who were demonized or insane, however you want to say it, a lot of times they lived in graveyards, they lived in gardens, they lived in vineyards, and they were unclean, kind of dirty places, and that's what our scene is right here, okay? And he describes, a terrible scene because he had been bound with shackles and chains, and the chains had been torn apart by him. Now think about that. How many chains have you tore apart, Kenny? Not pulling tractors with your hands. None, right? And I haven't either. Brian, you tore it, so we're talking about a really powerful man here, right? And he's demon possessed, and he has more than one demon, and we're going to find out, okay? And constantly, night and day, he was screaming among the tombs and in the mountains and gashing himself with stones. When you look up that word, gashing himself with stones, that means he literally was just cutting himself with it. So can you imagine what this man looked like? I mean, he was just all cut up and bruised and beaten, and he's screaming and hollering. He has all this tremendous strength. Not a very pleasant picture that was painted of this man, is it? And, on the human side of that, one of my authors said, he said, no doubt I'd have got back in the boat and left. Think about that, okay? There's got to be better looking people to save than this guy, right? And he went on to say, he said, but that's the human side. And he said, Jesus loved this guy just like he loved everybody else, right? Is that good stuff? It really is for me. And I read that. I thought, man, there's no doubt I'd have hit that boat a dead run and said, let's go, boys. Back to the other side. There's got to be somebody else saved other than this cat right here, right? But not for Jesus, right? And we're going to read on. All right. So he's screaming, he's hollering, he's got tremendous strength, and now he's seeing Jesus from a distance. He ran up and bowed down before him and shouting with a loud voice. He said, what business do we have with each other, Jesus, Son of the Most High God? Now, was that the man speaking or the demon speaking? The demon, yeah, it was. That was a demon in this man, that he was mocking God because did they have any business together? No, they had no business together, did they? I mean, Jesus shows up here, so they didn't have no meeting planned. They didn't have nothing to do with each other. They didn't have no business together. So he's mocking God. He said, what business do you have here with me? What are you doing here? This is my tomb, my island, my side of the country over here. And let's go back here to verse 8, and he says, for he had been saying to him, come out of the man, you unclean spirit. Okay, that's really an important verse here is, who is he? Who was saying this? Jesus was, right? Now, one of the only times that we're going to talk about in the miracles that where he had said it more than once, right? And that's what it says already. Interesting verse here. Verse 8, he says, For Jesus had been saying to him, come out of the man, you unclean spirit. And he was asking him, he said, what's your name? So now he's even calling on this spirit, right? This demon now. And he's saying, what's your name? And he says, he said to him, my name is Legion, for we are many. Leads us to believe, certainly, that there's more than one demon in this man, right? And what is a legion? Anybody remember what a legion is? Do we really think this was this guy's name, Legion? Probably not. This was the demon speaking for him again. And what is a legion? What is it? It is. A legion is 6,000 Roman troops is what that is. So does that mean this man had 6,000 demons in him? I don't know that. I mean, that's just what legion means. And and probably just wasn't his name, okay? Legion. But anyways, he says he was Legion. And in verse 10, he says, and he began to implore him earnestly not to send them out of the country. Now, that was one of those debatable things. What do you think that means? Don't send the demons out of the country. What do you think he's talking about there? Most people believe he's talking about the demon don't want to die, right? So don't send us out of this country. So Jesus, I believe here, he's going to have to prove to this guy is so insane that these demons are coming out of him, okay? And here's what he did. He says, now there was a large herd of swine feeding nearby on the mountain. The word swine is just pigs to us, okay? Truly, literally, there were 2,000 pigs grazing nearby. That's how many there was. Is 2,000 pigs a lot? You think so? I do too. You know, I've seen 2,000 pigs in confinement before, but I have never seen 2,000 pigs grazing before. I would hate to see what looks behind them because they have a terrible thing, they root, they're called, and I would think it would look just like plowed ground behind them. But there was 2,000 pigs, and that is a bunch of pigs. All right, it says the demons implored him, saying, send us into the swine so that we may enter them. And Jesus, that was a request from the demons, okay? They requested this. They knew they were defeated, right? They knew Jesus had this power, and Jesus gave permission. That's what he said. It's in verse 13, it says, Jesus gave them permission, and coming out of the unclean spirits, entered the swine, or the hogs, the pigs, and the herd rushed down the steep bank into the sea, about 2,000 of them, and they were drowned in the sea. I just like seeing that. 2,000 pigs running hard as they could, you know, and they're all running and jumping off a ledge and jumping into the sea. And they're down there, you know, floating upside down, you know, heads bobbing up and twisty tails sticking up from the other side, you know. And I'd like to have seen that, would you all? I would have. But what's the significance of this? Why was that important? No other miracle that we done did Jesus kill any animals, right? What's the significance? Right, and they did, and he gave them permission. The request was made, and he put them, he put all these evil spirits in these hogs. Yes, that's right. Still under total control, right? Jesus had total control of the situation. One thing stands out to me. One man, it took 2,000 pigs. Did he have that many demons in his soul, in his heart? Sounds like it, doesn't it? You know, that all these demons went and was put into the swine, into these pigs. I don't really know, and no one really knows what the total significance of the animals was here, the 2,000 pigs. Dan, would you like to weigh in? I mean, do you feel anything different than that? I mean, but one thing's for sure, it was a huge, huge mark for this man over here that the demons had come from, right? I mean, he stood and watched 2,000 pigs drown themselves on his behalf, right? So it was a huge net gain for the man who had been demonized. Here's where the story really, really gets interesting for me, okay? In verse 14, it says they're herdsmen, and a herdsman is no more than someone who was taking care of the pigs. They were the caregivers, the keepers of the pigs. So they ran away and reported into the city and the country. And the people came to see what it was that had happened. They came to Jesus and observed the man who had been demon-possessed sitting down, clothed and in the right mind. He says, the very man who had the legion, and they became frightened. Why were they frightened? Why were these people frightened? But they seen that he was healed, right? Absolutely. We're going to talk about that next. You're exactly right. But they were frightened, it said. And I assume that we might be frightened too. You know, if we come upon a person who had been mentally deranged and thrown out of the city that was strong enough to kill somebody with their human hands, no doubt if you could be in chains, you could do that stuff, right? And here he was clothed, he was sane, and he was sitting there, and it says the people was afraid. Verse 16 says, those who had seen it described to them how it happened to this demon-possessed man and all about the swine. And here's the verse that really gets me. It says in verse 17, and they began to implore him, Now, you would think after this story that this man was healed and they would implore him to come to town. Let's have a celebration feast, right? That Jesus, you are the man. You know, we are just elated to have you in our presence. Not only that, but we are elated that this man has been restored back to his sanity and his demons has been taken, right? That's not our story, though. That's not what our story says. That's not what the Bible says. It says, and they began to implore him to leave the region. Well, I'm highly disappointed. Are you? I don't understand that, and I tried to read and figure that out, why the people wanted him to leave. Now, part of it is going to go back to what you said, no doubt the money. 2,000 pigs in this time was a fortune, okay? So, and the best of my ability in my studies, that probably one man didn't own all 2,000 pigs, that this was a lot of people, there was a lot of landowners there who had hired these herdsmen who were watching their pigs. Let's finish this part of the story, okay? All right. It says, implore him to leave the region. So he did. I mean, it doesn't say, that he told the people that he had restored this man, and that's the way he had to do it in order to make this work. He didn't say none of that. In verse 18, he says, as he was getting into the boat, the man who had been demon-possessed was imploring him that he might accompany him. I think that'd be normal, do you? Here's a guy who had been wandering around, in the wilderness and the woods. He was crazy. He had no human contact. He no doubt he hadn't been to church who knows how long. I mean, he had been just almost like, committed to a wild animal, right? So I think it would be normal. I'd want to go too, wouldn't you? You just healed me, and I am normal again, and I want to go with you. And I just think that would just be a very normal setting. So when Jesus was getting in the boat, the man who had been demon-possessed was imploring him that he might accompany him. And Jesus didn't let him. And of course, we know that. And he says he did not let him, but he said to the man, he said, go home to your people and report to them what great things the Lord has done for you and how he had mercy on you. And he went away and began to proclaim in Decapolis what great things Jesus had done for him, and everyone was amazed. Did the story work out? It did, didn't it? The 2,000 pigs had drowned, no doubt, the people. That's what, part of the reason they wanted Jesus to leave. And also it made them uncomfortable, right? When we back up and we say, they wasn't happy, they wasn't joyful, they didn't celebrate, they wanted to leave. They're scared of him, right? But in the end of our story here, it says that he told him to go back into the city, and it says great things Jesus had done for him, and everyone was amazed. If you study the word amazed just a little bit, amazed goes on, has a sub-meaning to believe. So, good things happened by Jesus healing this man. All right. I'm going to stop there. Can't leave our times. We're going to do 3 today. And we've got through 1. So, any comments or questions about this miracle? It was. That is correct. There was Jews there, though.
You have a Jewish prophet and miracle worker doing this, and obviously Gentiles, they had this 2,000 swine, which the Jews would never have, and does this miracle. And this just shows Jesus did come to the Jews first, but his ministry did reach out to Gentiles. And here we have this Gentile angels. He's telling people in his area what Jesus did for him.
Right.
Prepare, I would think, for after Jesus returned to the Father for the gospel to be preached there also.
And if you look at the history, and you're exactly right. This could have been the start of the Gentile proclamation here, and I didn't get into that because I couldn't prove that, But you're exactly right. This was a non-Jewish place. They had won their freedom from Rome. I can't remember how that and what battle that was, and there's also 10 cities to the east. If you look to the east, there's 10 cities, and they're Jewish cities though. So these are mostly Gentiles, okay? However, it does say that there would have been some Jews living amongst the Gentiles. And would you say that the Jews wouldn't have pigs? How come? Yeah, that's right. Yeah. So we do know that the pigs did not belong to the Jewish people, that they were Gentiles, because, you know, the Jewish people at that time in life just decided that pigs were unclean. And they didn't, it would defile them, I believe is a word that one of my authors used. Good comments. Anything else?
Well, the people knew was all the demons had possessed this person. And if he could go back and walk among the city streets, pure and whole, just like a normal person, then what an influence he would have on people, what he could bring to tell them about Jesus.
Absolutely. I don't know if you heard Miss Norma or not there, but she said what an influence that would have been for this man to return back to his hometown and proclaim what Jesus had done for him, right? And
The Jews, you know, had like, they had the whole law, and they were prepared for the Messiah to come, and supposedly should they were recognized him. But this would have been like the first fruits, the first seed being planted, I would think, among the Gentiles,
well,
to help prepare them for the gospel, being saved by.
sure. Absolutely. Yep. That is correct too. And I don't like, personally, I don't like reading about this story, you know. I don't, I mean, I can just imagine what this guy looked like when Jesus seen him, right? You know, and, but, like I say, you know, when we started this, you know, I'd have hit that boat at a run. Shh, let's go, guys. There's more people out there to save other than this cat here, right? You know, this dude here. And, you know, but that's the human factor in this, right? I don't think like Jesus, and nobody else does either. Yeah.
I can't help but think about this character, the people that we see today that have drug and alcohol influence, that they're a wreck just like this man. And we often write them off and say that's a choice that they've made and that's the way they're going to live, as if they can't be saved.
Right.
And we see people that are just so far gone that we just, you know, can they be reached? I don't think they're as far gone as this man is.
Yeah. I don't know if you heard Kenny, you know, said this story reminds me of people that are, you know, has drug addiction, you know, and for those of you who've been around that, and at least we've seen it on TV, we've read it. Last night, for instance, a guy was on drugs and he set himself on fire. You know, that's what was on the news last night, you know. I would think you'd have to be somewhat demon-possessed to be able to light that cigarette or light that match and watch yourself go up into flames, you know. And but he was deranged himself. So that's a good point. You know, are these people worth saving? Jesus thought this guy was worth saving, right? Right? Doug?
The only thought I've got is, you know, there's question marks around swine, around the cliff. So I can't help but think, what if they haven't? So now you've got a bunch of swine with only one purpose, right? They're going to get sold, they're going to get consumed. You've got swine that are now demon possessed. If they had not gone off the cliff, what happens? Right? Do those demons get another lease on life? What is it? So again, the story doesn't tell us. So
Right.
I'm just thinking, probably was a very purposeful reason
Yep.
they went off, right? That cliff. They had to be taken out of population.
Well, I don't know if you heard Doug. He was talking about this. Went back to the pigs again. What was synonymous about the pigs? Why they have to die and why they go off the cliff? I don't know that. And like I say, the story doesn't tell us. When you study this, most of the authors believe that Jesus was proving to this man that it was over, that he was completely healed, that the demons was in the pigs, and they drowned and died, and that part of his life was over. Now, you know, that again, that's one man's opinion. So you had your hand up.
I was just thinking that, you know, the evil in the world in this region is no different. It has to be manifest in a big way in this one man. And when he sent all that into those swine, it just showed how much evil there was and cast all that aside. But that one man was the one that got it. When it was over, he wanted to go with Jesus. The rest of the community and others that witnessed the swine, they were still really under the control of evil, of Satan. But then he goes on and it shows that what a witness, you know, that a true believer can be to others eventually get the influence on others as well.
Absolutely. That's right. That's right. You know, and it is an amazing part of the story. that 2,000 pigs drowned, right? It really is. I mean, and the more you study that, the less that you know about it, and because it just wasn't told what Jesus, I mean, what his purpose was, other than, I mean, you know, I don't know how many demons was in this guy, but there was multiples, you know, so, but it would have made an impact on anybody, you know, and we don't know if we got to see, you know, this is one thing that the Bible never tells us, you know, is there evil-looking, big, ugly creatures that comes out of this guy's ear, you know, and, you know, I'm thinking about movies that I've seen, right? You know, so we don't know really how he was undemonized, do we? You know, did he just say that and you know, and it happened and they were gone? I mean, did the demons get into the pigs and the pigs squeal and twitch and, you know, and blood run out of their nostrils? I don't know, right? Well, I think the synonymous part of it would be that they drowned, that the demons were dead, you know, when the pigs drowned. Yeah, in the pigs. I'm not sure. That's my story for today, okay? Any more questions? We're just about out of time. Next week, we'll do better. We're going to talk about, let's see what our next miracle is. Jesus raises Jairus' daughter back to life, and a woman with a blood issue, and Jesus heals the blind man. And we'll try very hard to get through 3 of them next week. Thank you very much. I appreciate your attendance and your being part of the class.